Good morning, folks. Welcome to America's Talk Show. Today is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. We are the unaffiliated follow-up to Mark Halperin's Two-Way. Mark is off this week, but I was given some suggestions as to topics. Okay, so I'm just going to list out a few, and then we can jump into whatever folks want to talk about. But we have, let's see, latest on tariffs and President Trump. President Donald Trump is preparing to reinstate higher tariffs on most U.S. trading partners starting July 9th. Key developments. Canada dropped its planned digital service tax on U.S. tech companies after Trump threatened new tariffs and suspended trade talks. Japan is facing the threat of new tariffs, particularly on automobiles, unless it agrees to import more American rice. I believe I shared the screenshot. Oh, it might have been on Twitter. I'll try to post it in the group chat. But according to President Trump on Truth Social, Japan, they're actually having a rice shortage right now. But because of that, internal politics, right, they'd rather let people suffer through a rice shortage than bring in American rice, There's that whole Japanese rice is pure. But no, Calrose works, folks. Calrose is an American brand of Japanese sticky rice. It'll work in your sushi. Continuing on with tariffs, European Union negotiators have reportedly agreed to a universal 10% tariff on many exports to the U.S., but are seeking exemptions for key sectors like pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and aircraft. China has already faced sharply higher tariffs, with U.S. rates on Chinese imports raised to 145% in April, and Beijing responded with its own increases. Okay, that's on tariffs. Update on birthright citizenship. Let's see. Supreme Court victory for Trump on that. I'll just leave it right there. Elon Musk and the big, beautiful bill, right? We can say who's going to win. They're still going at it, Trump versus Musk, but I tip my hat towards the president. Another final update, Congo and Rwanda. Let's see, ceasefire and respect for borders. Trump's role and statement. Trump celebrated the agreement as a historic breakthrough and took personal credit for brokering the deal, describing it as a great day for Africa and for the world. Okay, folks, welcome ML. Do we want to start off with tariffs or Joshua? Please go ahead, sir. Good morning.
I just wanted to throw out there, if anybody is interested in asking an actual attorney who knows civil procedure questions about universal injunctions or the Supreme Court decision, I'm happy to answer those. I find it just mind-blowing that the conversation on one side or the other is being demagogued by talking heads that have never taken a civil procedure class or filed a motion in their life. So just making myself available for that.
And Joshua, pretend the YouTube audience is no idea what you're talking about. So can you give some additional background, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, so I'm an attorney in Virginia. I've been barred in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, since 2016. I've practiced land use and zoning law, municipal government law, and personal injury defense. So the main issue that I see with commentary about the Supreme Court case that overturned is the wrong word, but the latest case that came out where the court ruled that the district court essentially doesn't have the power to issue a universal injunction against the executive branch of government, essentially based on standing issues, etc. Most of the things that I see are completely incorrect. Commentary like, there's no recourse for groups of people who would be affected by the same case, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm more than happy to talk about that.
What's your just backing up before we even heard about this? Did you think that there was an issue or that something was being kicked up?
You mean about did I think that that universal injunctions was a big
Sorry. I
problem?
want to make sure we're talking about the birthright citizenship case.
Yeah, we're talking about the birthright citizenship case, but that's not what the court ruled on. And here's another
Right.
thing. Perfect rule. Okay. So the case that the court ruled on this term, the merits were about birthright citizenship, but the appeals process is not an appeal on the merits. You appeal from so you have a trial, okay, and that trial at the state level or at the federal level is held at the state or federal circuit court, okay. That's where you put on your evidence. Your plaintiff and defendant put on their evidence, et cetera, make their objections. In order to appeal a case to an appeals court, the objection has to be made about a matter of law, not fact, a matter of law. And the matter of law must be dispositive to the outcome of the case. So if I were to make an objection, and off the top of my head, I don't have an example or a hypo that I'm going to give you, but if I think that the judge has made an error in the application of the law at any point through the case, I'll make an objection. I'll preserve that objection for appeal, because if you don't make the objection, it's lost, it's gone. So I'll make that objection. I'll appeal to the next level, which is usually called the Court of Appeals, and then we'll have either a panel hearing or an en banc hearing at the Court of Appeals, where the Court of Appeals will determine between the respondent and the appellant and the respondent, the outcome of their decision based on that rule of law. So they'll determine whether or not the circuit court judge ruled correctly on that issue of law. Again, not issues of fact, right? Also known as the merits of the case. These are issues of law. After that appeals process, or after that appellate court hearing, you may or may not be able to, well, you can appeal to the Supreme Court, but they may or may not take your appeal. They'll take your appeal based on a number of criteria. For example, to clear up an appellate split, so to clear up a circuit split, or if it's a matter of significant interest to the court and to the country, they'll take that up. This case was specifically about the ability of a district court judge who is otherwise limited based on the jurisdictional boundaries of his circuit, his or her circuit, okay, to issue a universal injunction that affects the administration's ability to enforce a law or engage in activity universally across the United States. So again, this is not, it's sort of a misnomer, but an understandable mistake to say that this is a birthright citizenship case, because at the Supreme Court, that had nothing to do with it. Now, there is a case that's probably going to come out in the October term that does deal with birthright citizenship. And my thought is, the court's not going to overturn 100 years of precedent. But those are my thoughts. I'll pause.
Okay, I just want to I want to zoom out and then see if I'm understanding things correctly. So this might even go back to Trump 1.0. I think it does. Just a family friend, Stanford doctor, commenting on random gathering. I don't know how the topic got sparked, but he's just like, man, I'm doing these procedures at Stanford. These women come in from China. I think it was maybe giving birth or whatever. He's like, they give birth and then they head back. And he's like, I've complained to the upper ups, but they say, dude, pipe down, because in terms of costs, these women aren't paying. We're getting reimbursed by the government. right? So in terms of that was a big complaint that people are coming over, exploiting our healthcare services, right? Going back and the taxpayers are footing the bill. So just starting there, is that something folks have heard, or am I in the exception here? Alan?
I've never heard that, but are you saying that are you talking about the concept of people coming over here utilizing the
Exploiting
language?
exploiting taxpayer services.
I don't know what that has to do with the case.
Okay, so that's why I'm wondering if I'm zooming too far out, but that's what I thought, that there's a sentiment that the good nature of America, right, are like, classically liberal nature, right? The excess, or not excess, but the abundance we have has become exploited by people posing as immigrants or refugees or whatnot, and these Chinese women giving birth here and flying back would be an example of that. But I want to get Alan's take on this. Alan, please.
I think what Josh is focusing on the procedural aspect of a district court judge, overstepping their constitutional powers of injuncting or putting a national injunction on the whole nation, and it's a separation of powers issue. It's not, the birthright issue is not even in this case. It was the means to get to the Supreme Court to review the procedural issue. Is that what you're talking about, Josh?
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify that although the merits of this case at the circuit court level dealt with birthright citizenship, I believe. I didn't follow the merits of this case at the circuit court level. You don't appeal the merits. You appeal you appeal a specific decision as to the law. So the if I murdered someone, or if I shot somebody in the face and I was on trial, and I lost the trial, okay, the criminal trial, I couldn't appeal to the Court of Appeals for a new trial on the merits. They would deny that appeal. But if I found some issue of law that the prosecution had, in my opinion, or my attorney's opinion, had messed up, and they had made a timely objection, and that objection was overruled at the circuit court level, then we could appeal that issue, okay? And only that issue would be heard. So in this case, the issue that was heard was the scope of the injunction, okay? And the powers of the district court to issue a universal injunction. I'll just quote from the case syllabus. And again, this is the case Trump v. Casa Inc., okay? The holding is universal injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has given to federal courts. The court grants the government's applications for a partial stay of the injunction entered below, but only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff with standing to sue. So the issues that are important and the issues that are getting completely overlooked in this case, for various reasons, are the issues of the equitable authority that Congress granted the courts, standing to sue, and minimum relief necessary.
Okay. All right. I'm going to bring Andre in, but I still want to know, what is the motivation behind what's going on? I gave one example. I don't know if there's others. Andre, go ahead. Sorry.
I think what people are having issue is with the White House lawyers being too cute by half, and I mean that was even mentioned by Amy Coney Barrett in the majority decision, where that she said, like, even if the president or the administration is acting in an unconstitutional manner, it is not incumbent upon the judiciary to break the law or exceed its authority to do that. But that the too cute by half is, it happened in the deportation cases. where the Trump administration has successfully stayed these national injunctions that prevent deportations to other countries overall, even though one person brought the case or one state would have brought the case. It stayed it. The district judge stayed any deportations of happening, because obviously you want to stop deportations and not try to figure out how to bring these people back if, in fact, these actions were unlawful. With the birthright citizenship case, there is no level of this process that it has gone through from A through B through C of different courts looking at this case. There is nobody, and in fact, the dissenting opinion, the majority dissenting, not the Justice Jackson opinion, but the Sotomayor opinion says that everybody agrees that birthright citizenship, like the executive order, would be unlawful. But like Josh said, this is just about stopping an injunction to stop everything and not looking at the underlying merit. So instead, what we're going to have is in reality, 30 days from that order, different states, including Florida and other ones, can go ahead and redefine what citizenship is in those states. And because there is no more national injunction, for good or for bad, because we know that the Obama administration, Biden administration also argued against national injunctions. But instead of having this national injunction until we get a final opinion by the Supreme Court, now we're in this case where we're allowing everything to happen, probably in a pretty messed up way, because it's going to be chaotic when we're changing, when local governments or state governments are given permission by the president's executive order to ignore the Constitution in one perspective. And then we're going to have to fix it with a final solution in the end anyway. I don't know how that helps the society in general.
And Andrij, just what is the motive behind this? What is whether it's correct sentiment or incorrect? What would you say is, why is Trump, or why is this even being brought up in the first place?
He has an administration that just does things for the sake of doing things. As far as I can tell, I mean, working with in dealing with other authoritarian regimes or consolidated power like Hungary and other places, they're just going to keep doing things without being slapped on because that's available.
So
I feel the same way with Stephen Miller.
Okay, are you saying that this is more of a show that Trump's just trying to appeal to the base, that's saying, oh, look, I'm being America first by dealing with the citizenship issue? Or is there something, is that a fair way of summarizing your take on it? I have
no idea where this comes. I have no opinion on where this comes from initially. I'm focusing on the after effects and the chaos that we're going to have with different states, and Florida seems to be one of the first ones to be up for redefining citizenship.
Have you heard any from either side, your side, other side, whatever sides, that people go, man, I feel like people are coming in from abroad and exploiting our services?
That's been the United States message for centuries. We've been complaining about an other, and
okay, but so there is.
We can blame immigrants. We can blame Jews. We can blame, you name the thing. How does that in the end fix us? In the end, we were having that conversation with Wesley yesterday. If you start deporting 1 billion people a year, we're going to have a shrinking economy.
Okay, but there's some sentiment that there's people outside, what do you want to call it, xenophobia or foreigners, or that someone is causing. There's some sentiment there, is what I'm trying to get at. Whether it's a rationally founded or not, there's a sentiment there, I believe. Joshua?
And sorry. My question would be then, where in history do we have a successful program that if people were only kicked out, society got better?
Okay, fair question. Joshua?
Yeah, look, to answer the question, your question, Raul, I think it comes from the idea that the Trump administration, essentially made a promise to deport illegal immigrants, and they view it. I think they view it sort of naively as an 80-20 issue, when it's certainly much more nuanced than that. And part of the idea, and I don't know who in the administration came up with it, maybe it's Stephen Miller. He seems to be Stephen Miller seems to be the Dick Cheney / Donald Rumsfeld the Trump administration as far as his status as Darth Vader or Boogeyman. And again, I don't know much about him, so he might have earned that. But this was decided in 1898. United States versus Wong Kim Ark. The birthright citizenship, the provision of the 14th Amendment, it's already been decided. So, look, each branch of government, legislative, executive, or judicial, can interpret the Constitution in its own way, but ultimately, our precedent in this country is that the Supreme Court of the United States has the final say, and determines what the law is, so to speak. Right? That's the Marbury versus Madison issue. With this case, again, I think there's already a case in the hopper that the Supreme Court is going to hear in October, and I can't imagine that the Supreme Court wouldn't unanimously vote to uphold its precedent that it's maintained on the 14th Amendment since 1898. And to do otherwise would lead to an absolutely absurd outcome, which again is an abhorrence to the judicial branch, right? Because the idea is, in the idea that the Trump, at least rhetorically, again, I haven't read the pleadings, I haven't read the arguments. Rhetorically, the Trump administration is saying that the issue with birthright citizenship is, subject to the laws thereof, right? Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And so they're saying that illegal immigrants aren't properly subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. I think that is an insane thing to say, because if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, you essentially have a form of blanket immunity, akin to diplomatic immunity, right? Where the only recourse, if you violate a law in this country, the only recourse is for you to be deported. Well, okay, so you can't try an illegal immigrant for murder because he's not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. You can only deport that person. That is an absurd result. And I can't imagine that this case that's going up there right now is going to overturn over 100 years of judicial precedent and lead to an absurd result. It's not going to happen.
And Joshua, unfortunately, I wasn't able to corroborate my friend's tale about Chinese women coming over, exploiting the system. But assuming that foreigners come in, give birth, fly back, okay, in a perfect world, Congress would address that, correct?
It'd have to be an amendment. It would have to be a constitutional amendment. Congress can't address it. I mean, it's the 14th Amendment. Okay. So it's not in my opinion, it's not an exploit. It's the way the 14th Amendment is drafted. But now you can take, hold on a second. You can take the originalist standpoint, which I've heard Donald Trump himself make, which is that the 14th Amendment was written to for the children of former slaves. Okay. So you can take that, or you can take a textual approach, which is where I think the court is going to go, because that's where the precedent has been for over 100 years. And the textualist approach is reading the words. Okay. So if you want to take this to a more popular amendment, we can talk about, analogize to the Second Amendment. Well, the founders didn't have AR-15s. Well, that's not, that's the originalist argument. The textualist argument is, well, the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about specific types of guns. It just says arms.
Okay, but this is where I want to back out for folks, right? Especially the YouTube audience, okay? Because we get very about in America dotting our I's, crossing our T's. There was a Jeopardy participant who shared a story. He's leaving Taiwan, okay? He's flying out. He's literally overstayed his visa by like 3 hours. They're like, oh, shame on you, buddy. You're not back for a year. 3-hour visa overstay, okay? No grace there, right? And the Stanford doctor I mentioned, like these are Democrats. The people I'm talking about, I'm in California. It's like, these are like family generational Democrats. And so for them to see an exploitation of the system, and then if they go, oh, Trump's doing something about this, they're not thinking Congress should ask, constitutional amendment, what's the history of the country? From a Stanford doctor or someone witnessing this day in, day out, who is not a Trump person at all, you know, that's where it's, when you zoom out, there's a problem. Trump is doing something about it. No one else before Trump as a president has done anything about it, right?
I need you to tell me what the exploit is, though. I mean, are you saying...
The exploit is I can fly into America, give birth,
yeah,
and then fly back. That's an exploit.
How is that an exploit?
How is that an exploit? How is that ethical for anyone?
Raul, that's the text of the 14th Amendment.
Okay, but see, it's being exploited because that 14th Amendment was not crafted so that Chinese women in 2025 or 2024 would come in here, give birth, and fly back.
But what's the downside? I mean, what's the downside to the child having U.S. citizenship?
What's the problem that needs?
You asked the question for me.
What's the problem that Trump is fixing? That's my. What's the problem?
Okay, great.
I mean, ostensibly to steelman that argument, ostensibly the idea is like, you know, is the idea of anchor babies, right? So people would come here, an illegal would come here and give birth, and their child is a citizen. So now they have an argument that they shouldn't be deported, or, you know, the child can't be deported because the child is a U.S. citizen, right? So I'm trying to steelman your argument.
Okay, but put yourselves in the shoes of the doctor. You want to provide best care, and you see this phenomenon where women are coming in from abroad. It's like, wait a minute, are we serving the citizenship? Who's paying? Or again, what was his point? The childbirth is being subsidized by the taxpayer. Why are American taxpayers subsidizing the childbirth of Chinese women? That's the...
Yeah, I don't think that's the perspective of the doctor, Raul.
That's exactly what he told me. He's upset that
the OBGYNs that I know, that I'm friends with, I say OBGYNs, I guess I should say OBGYN singular, but you know, I don't think the OBGYN that I'm friends with asks for papers before she delivers a baby.
You don't have to ask for papers. It's obvious when it's day in, day out, right? If they're Chinese speaking or whatever. I mean, it's...
Are they not paying the doctor? Is that the problem?
That's the problem. The whole procedure is reimbursed by the federal government. Yes.
Yeah, but Raul, what you're asking for is a gross violation of everyone's civil liberties. You can't expect somebody to come in here illegally and then not go get health care, or medical support, because that's going to be a net effect negative on everyone, just like it is now. But what kind of a system would you implement to where a person is going to their doctor, legal or illegal or not, whatever? How in the hell would you know or enforce that? Like that's trying to put a control like where it doesn't belong, or where it would be very, very dangerous and awkward to put it in there. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, like you're talking about civil liberties, you're talking about medical rights, you're talking about a lot of things. And I think some of this is that we live in an honor-based society, right? So like, where if you say you're so-and-so and you're straight up but what happens when people lie? You know, what happens? That's that conflict that we see that happens. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. And again, this isn't something I'm making up. This is something I'm sharing where, again, a doctor It's not just he's witnessed it, okay, and then fine, take him at his word. But now he has complained to the upper ups, to the administration, why is this phenomenon happening? And the response from the uppers ups, don't worry who's paying for it. The federal government is paying for it. And we know federal government means taxpayers.
Raul, let me answer your question very directly. And then let me give you something to chew on. Okay. To answer your question very directly, how do we, and again, steel manning your argument. If this is a huge exploit that is draining taxpayer dollars, the answer is there needs to be a constitutional amendment. That's the answer. Okay. Congress can't do anything about it. There needs to be a constitutional amendment because the plain language that the courts are going to read in the 14th Amendment are going to allow for birthright citizenship. I think there are probably there are other judicial remedies that doctors and hospitals and doctors organizations can seek against individuals who don't pay their bills, and it's just a matter of are they willing to do that? What's the scope of the problem? And what's the cost of enforcement? Okay. Now here's the thing to chew on. All right. It's called law and economics theory. Okay. TLDR, law and economics, is the cost of 100% is infinity. Okay. Let's take this. Let's just analogize this to murder again. Okay. The cost of reducing murder to zero in the United States is infinitely more expensive than the benefit to reducing murders to zero, because you would sacrifice everyone's freedom in order to do that. Okay, to reduce the murder rate to zero. All right, sort of an exponential curve, right? You've seen exponential curves before. Okay, once you get up to the 80-90% mark on the x-axis, the y-axis just shoots right up, right? So instead of talking about, or instead of really, and this is why my buddy, I put it in the chat earlier, like, if an alien came down to the United States and looked at our government and tried to explain the three branches of government or analogize it, they'd probably analogize it to a corporation in this way. They'd say the president of the United States is the CEO, the Supreme Court is the board of directors, and the legislature is the marketing department. Because they take the marketing department takes those margins, those marginal issues, right, that have no chance of being resolved, but also, again, are like marginally impactful, and blowing them up to generate votes. Okay, just so that they can stay, just so that they can keep getting reelected so that they have a career. Because being a congressman or a senator now, it's a career path, it's not a public service.
So to kind of go in on a little bit of the Machiavellian side of the courts and politics and everything in between. So yeah, you're right. You would have to have the constitutional amendment, or what you could do is have the Congress make a bum law, which we all know would be fly in the face of current standing under of the amendment, and then that would welcome the opportunity, because nobody's going to let a bad law go unchallenged in the courts. So the thinking would be, you create the bad law, you let the opposition to it bring it to the court's attention, and then slowly you work your way up to SCOTUS, like some of these other courts in cases that have been done, which have flipped the world upside down. It just is a thing. Like, that's a little bit more Machiavellian, but it has happened. Not necessarily like I described per se, but anyway, I just wanted to add my 2 cents. Sorry.
Thank you. No. Appreciate that, ML. Shamsul, patiently waiting.
Yeah. My thoughts are actually, I would say just a bit on what Josh was saying. I think the legislatures are more like proxy to shareholders. more than a marketing department, you know. So they want to hold on to being proxies to shareholders and keep their jobs as those proxies. But that's just an aside. When I looked at this issue actually from a helicopter point of view, I don't really see it as, you know, I mean, yeah, the cost to the taxpayers are more on not really birthright citizenship, but more on illegal migration. That has a big impact on taxpayer expenditure. But when I look at it from a helicopter's point of view of the issue itself, number one, there's only a few countries in the world that has birthright citizenship, especially, shall we say, in the developed world or even in the Commonwealth world. That's very few. I mean, you're talking about, from on top of my head, US and Canada. You don't have that in most countries that are quite developed. Number one. So why, my question then become actually on the motivation of why the Trump administration is taking this route going to the Supreme Court. Because for me, if I want to address birthright citizenship, actually I look at a constitutional amendment to make it easier, right? So that goes to what Josh was saying. However, you know, they're going to give it a shot with the Supreme Court. And I'm never one to actually second guess or try to speculate what courts will do. Because these lawyers, you never know how it will come down to. So I really won't speculate on that. But constitutional amendment is the cleanest way one would do it. Now, going on motivation, the last part I want to say is actually on motivation, I think it has a lot more to do with the impact of illegal immigration and how that is used with anchor babies. And that is because more on the illegal immigration itself, because they look at it as a threat of what was, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read somewhere where it was termed as the replacement theory of the population, where you bring this immigration, these illegal immigrants in, and the Democrats will have a voting bloc that will forever be voting for them. That was the theory, at least. I think I've mentioned this before. In third world countries, in Malaysia, that has been done, which is to bring in illegal immigrants and give them fake ID cards so that they vote for the people that brought them in. This happens, okay, all the time. So whilst the Democratic Party seems to somehow disavow this replacement theory, but I used to read this quite some time back that was a strategy. That was a clear-cut strategy of the Democrat. So that's my 2 cents worth of on this issue. Josh, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would say very specifically, Donald Trump, the Trump administration is not, in fact, they're not trying to go through the Supreme Court of the United States for birthright citizenship. Donald Trump, the Trump administration has made an independent determination that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to you know, the children born in the United States to illegal immigrants. And so they're trying to proceed forward under that notion or that interpretation of the 14th Amendment. It's
with an executive order. Am I right, Josh?
With an executive order. Yes, with an executive order. So they're not, I mean, they're not using the court process. It's defendants or, you know, plaintiffs that are suing the administration that are using the court process. We don't have a we don't have a system of independent review in this country, and we don't the judicial branch doesn't give advisory opinions. Okay, so for example, like France, France has a.
George. I don't think they
I'm
should.
sorry? No,
I don't think they
correct.
should.
Correct. So what I'm saying is the Supreme Court can't opine on an action unless it's a justiciable case with plaintiffs that comes in front of the Supreme Court, right? Or appellants that come in front of the Supreme Court. So it has to move through the court system. There are some fast-tracked issues and some exceptions, but unlike other countries in Europe that have a constitutional court that can give advisory opinions on what their own constitution says preemptively, we don't do that here in the United States. The reason why we don't do amendments anymore either is because they're damn hard to do, and we're essentially split 50-50 in this country. So, yeah, you know, and I think that's a good thing, that amendments are damn hard to do.
I agree with you on that part, but I do think that I feel, at least I think that when the executive order was issued, I'm pretty sure they already know that it's going to go right up to the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Everybody knows that. I don't have a doubt in the world that the administration knows that once they're sued with this, it's going to get overturned. Because, again, they can go back and they can say, well, look, I tried, right? But, oh, those damn justices, blah, 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 throw them out, the bums, impeach them, you know, yada, yada, yada. It's all spin. It's all politics. It's all politics. There's no way. I just, you know, hold me to this, right? And you know, hold me accountable in October. But I just don't think there's any chance that the court overturns more than almost 130 years of judicial precedent on this issue. I just don't see that happening at all.
I just agree with you on that one.
When folks make this into a racial, I don't know what's being said about Stephen Miller, right?
Some
or
Democrats took that lesson to heart, and it's not.
Sorry, who spoke?
Sorry, just had to mute. Sorry about the little feedback. Just that immigrants, people that went through the process or still trying to go through the process, right? Like, we can understand the ire that immigrants would have, legal immigrants, towards people that are flouting the system, right? Like, okay, all right. And because I guess I've been blessed with, when I was in Texas along the border, having plenty of Latino, Hispanic friends, right? People much, actually, you know, fair skin, right? You think they're white, okay? But that's the nature of the border. All right. And they're just openly talking about, oh, such and such is coming over, and man, they're going to get the free housing and the free healthcare and this and that, you know, and not because they're oppressed, not because they're, you know, leaving some cartel situation, but just like, yay, free stuff. And in the cameras, no one's going to say that on the cameras, right? No one's going to say, hey, we're coming for free stuff. On the cameras, it's going to be, oh, CASA, oh, us poor brown people, oh. And when I was at Service Employees International union organizer, and we did a focus group amongst the staff to talk about immigration, it was to my surprise that the Latina, Jessie, was speaking up saying, I'm sick of the illegals, and you all think that we Latinos are for this. And let me tell you, it's a big problem in our community. And I was like, whoa, what? So just that was news to me. Andre?
Well, but I mean, but this case, yeah, I mean, that may be 100% true. And those might be the feelings of you know, a lot of people, but that's not what Trump v. CASA is about.
Sure. Feelings aren't. I get it. Feelings aren't facts, right? But the answer to that, right, isn't going to be found in the court system. The answer to that is public policy, and that's when you need. Look, that's when the legislature needs to be held accountable.
But the
Yes.
problem is they're not. I mean, to be honest, I think legislative, what was the word, and why can't I remember it? Legislative delegation of powers. The legislature delegating it so much of its power to the executive branch created the very thing that they love to either root for or boo, okay, which is the powerful executive branch that we have now, or as you will hear it called, the imperial presidency, right? Like, they did that for a reason. It's because the senators and congressmen don't want to be accountable for votes and for the actions that they take there. They're not public servants. They're not the citizen, the citizen legislators that they were when this country was founded.
It's a career, man.
It's a career. I mean, it's a career. And just like any other career, you want to try to stay in your career. You don't want to get fired, right? I mean,
don't rock the boat.
But do we believe Congress can take back its dutiful power?
They
yes,
don't want
can.
to, Raul.
They don't I know, but
no.
I gotta plug my.
Yeah, they don't want to, right? This is I can't think of a better argument for term limits in the Senate and in the House than the fact that possibly term limits would limit their ability to be in there as a career. Okay. Yep. And maybe they would take back some of their responsibility and accountability. But until they do that, I mean, you're pissing in the wind.
It's everywhere. It's the same here when you talk about parliament. It's the same in Australia. And that's why I actually like the idea of the presidency. Anyway, I think Andrij has been waiting too long. Let him speak.
No, I don't know if you want me to speak, Sam.
Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. I love it. I want to hear you. I've heard Josh. It was some good points. I mean, go ahead. Come on, buddy.
I've done this at numerous places. I give talks on disinformation and stuff. Great replacement theory is a conspiracy theory that should be condemned. I don't want to hear this. Yeah, it is the basis of many international terrorist incidents, beginning with the Christchurch shooter, other incidents all over France. It does not have a basis in the United States, specifically when we're talking about immigration rights and or the voting therein. So what Tucker has jumped on and other people of that ilk is saying that the Democratic Party is looking to bring in new voters because the people in traditionally democratically dominated states have been moving to other states. And so to replace them, it has been these immigrants, because immigrants for the most part live in heavily urbanized areas. That's just what immigrants do when they come to this country. That does not mean they're being shipped in to replace these people. That is where immigrants normally go. I'll give evidence to this last when the Ukrainian refugee situation was opened up in 2022. I went to visit immigrant advocates in the UK a year after the fact. And even though all these people were evenly distributed, much like the United States at the very beginning, sent to different states so that there's an even distribution, what in the end happened in the UK was that 90% of those people gravitated towards the greater London area because that's where the jobs are in that country. Same thing here in the United States. They may have been shipped out or not shipped out. They may have received programs from different nonprofits to go to a very dispersed segment of the geography, but in the end, they go to where the jobs are because that's what immigrants are interested in. Do immigrants vote? Yes. Naturalized immigrants vote at a lesser rate than native-born Americans. That's just the fact. So if you're talking about getting people here in the United States, then giving them citizenship somehow, which doesn't happen easily. I've been in asylum courts. 9 times out of 10, those people get kicked out. probably even higher than 9 times out of 10. I've been in an asylum court where a friend of mine was saying that he was beaten up by people. He's afraid to go back into the country. The judge brought up the fact that there was a change in government in your country. So obviously everything's fine. You should just go back there. It is not easy to get things. I don't know where the contention is that people get things for free in this country. I have gone through mountains of paperwork with people who have been in this country trying to get onto programs, trying to find SNAP, trying to find other programs. It is not easy in any way to do this stuff, in my opinion, having filled out these forms, having worked with these people. And in the end, a lot of refugees who come to this country give up and say, it's not worth it. I'm going to go to another country where there are federal programs, because we don't have federal programs. For the most part, we have state-based programs for people coming to this country. There's no federal office for new Americans. Each state has individual programs for new Americans. Each state has different services for whether you're an asylum seeker, a refugee, or simply somebody who's becoming naturalized in this country. But my main thing is, especially since we're on YouTube, is that I see nobody who should not be condemning the Great Replacement Theory. It has only brought up the worst in people all over the world. And here in this country, it feeds into the narrative that there's going to be some kind of race war, that there's going to be some kind of great uncoming of this incredible experiment. But in the end, all we've seen is that immigrants just make this country better.
Yes, and that's what's so heartbreaking, Andre, about the status quo, is we all know people that should get refugee status or papers or have been here. I personally have, I know people that have been here forever and they don't have the papers for whatever reason. And those are the people that, should be facilitated, right? I also have a cousin who worked for Facebook, these top consulting firms, Anderson Consulting, whatever, and just never has been able to get the visa to be in America. So he's stuck in Canada or whatever, right? So there's people that we know, like, okay, these are the talent. This could be the positive contributors to America. But at the same time, like you said, it's state by state. I'm speaking of the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas. This is McAllen, Pharr, Edinburgh, that whole area, okay? And the scams are as plain as day. Once you put your ear out, you can hear what's all going on. So I'm being very specific about the South Texas border region. Jen, you've been waiting patiently.
I just need to drop off for a second. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question about the term limits. Would there be any constitutional challenges on term limits?
Great question.
I think you'd have to have a constitutional amendment for term limits.
Okay. So it would be equally hard to bring about.
Yeah, it would be. Okay. But I mean, we did it with the presidency, right? Like we got a constitutional amendment to term limit the executive.
Right. But that was a different situation.
Well, was it? I mean, the situation was FDR.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the argument applies to Congress as well. It would, but it's not. But it's certainly not going to be. It's certainly not going to be introduced by Congress as a constitutional amendment. It would need to be. It would need to be a convention that was started in the states. So, good luck.
Well, I mean, in essence, the fact that we vote every 2 years is term limits.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. We vote every 2 years for so their term in the House is a 2-year term. The term in the Senate is a 6-year term, but they can run for an unlimited number of those terms.
Right.
So the problem is the accountability factor. Term limits would change the way. Again, this is my proposition.
Yeah.
Term limits for example, if you limited a congressman to 3 terms, okay, and you limited a senator to 3 terms, okay, you'd have a congressman that could have a maximum of 6 years in office, okay, before he or she had to go find something else to do. And a senator that would have a maximum of 12, 20, 24 years before they'd have to go find something else to do. Or maybe limit it to 12, right? Like maybe limit the Senate to 12 years, okay, before they had to go find something else to do. You would, so you would have, so the concept of voting would change. The concept of elections would change. The idea that you could go to Congress and perhaps and sort of just not do anything and just bitch over here about something or blow something over here out of proportion to rile up your vote counts so that you can keep getting taxpayer dollars to support your lifestyle and your insider trading antics. Like I think term limits would solve that problem.
Would an easier hill to climb be finding a way to limit the ways they make money while they're in Congress, so that it's not as enticing as a lifetime pursuit?
Yeah. Let's let that float out there, Jen. And I want to bring in Duke. He's had his hand up.
Yeah, I don't think anybody goes to work in Congress for their salary. I think they all go to work for what they can make otherwise, because they could certainly make more than what we're paying them probably in the business sector. Now they might have to work, but to Jen's question about constitutional amendment, I listened to a dissertation about a 15-minute dissertation on the legalities of term limits, and it is stated in the Constitution, and I'm paraphrasing, that people have the right to pick the person of their choosing. So that, and unless you amend that to say something else, then yes, you'll have to have a constitutional amendment. I'll also say that I think the reason that they keep getting reelected is everybody thinks it's the other person's congressperson who's bad. Theirs is good, so they keep voting for them. It's always the other guy that needs to be kicked out. So that's it.
I appreciate that, Duke. Jen and Duke, you guys didn't comment on any of this birthright stuff. Is just like what's behind it. Any thoughts, opinions?
Well, as an American who wasn't born in the United States, my father was career Air Force, so I was born in the UK, and I did not exercise my dual citizenship. I kept my United, but I do have both birth certificates. And for anybody else in that situation, when you go to claim Medicare and Social Security, you can't do it online. You got to show up in person with all your documents. If you were not born on this soil, you have to go to the Social Security Administration office and prove who you are. Easy for me because I had let my passport expire, so I just got it renewed and took it down there, and it was easy. But yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I don't doubt that there's an anchor baby problem. The magnitude, I don't know. I haven't looked into the magnitude of it. Does it happen? Absolutely, it happens. Do they take advantage of a loophole in the system? Absolutely, some people do. I don't know. I don't know what the overall drain, if that's a big enough drain on the system to warrant trying to change the Constitution, which as it stands right now, as I read that 14th Amendment, I don't believe you have grounds to say that it says anything about the anchor babies.
All right, thank you for that, Duke. Jen, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm kind of with Duke on that. I think the things that we have to do to decrease illegal immigration, I firmly believe we need to up our game with legal immigration. But to decrease illegal immigration, I think we need to find ways to remove the incentives from them coming here. And
Yep.
It sounds cruel and harsh, but the only legal way I can think about dealing with the anchor baby program is just simply deport the illegal parents, and they can choose if the baby stays or the baby goes with them. So
I think may I say something? I don't really see the anchor baby issue or whatever as really the problem. Even the birthright citizenship, I don't see that really as being the problem. It's basically it's basically birthed out of the whole issue of these open borders that you guys have and illegal immigration just flooding into the country. It's just totally ridiculous what I'm seeing, right? And what I see together with that as well is actually you've got really bad elements that has come through because your borders was so porous and was so open, right? You know, the ones you hear that has been mentioned in the
watch who you're
news.
calling porous, bud. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing.
It's okay. That's all right. But that's a well, I'll go on the osmosis system then. So anyway, so if you look at the criminal elements that come through when the border is that uncontrolled. We are also here. I mean, we are a country of about only 36 million people, right? And we've got a huge problem of and ours is, and we've got is just people overstaying. We just nabbed yesterday's issue. We just nabbed 36 radical Islamist jihadis from Bangladesh. So I'm thinking, I shudder to think, you know, how many sleeper cells do you guys have that has come through your borders? Because you're such a big country and people overstaying and all that. And it's like when I hear Democrats and the media talking flippantly about illegal immigration, it just boggles my mind. Because here we are, 36 million, and you know, we catch 35 of these guys, we are already scared shitless. You know? And that's not the only occurrence that we are looking at. We've got Pakistanis, we've got Indonesians, we've got separatists from the Philippines, the Muslim separatists from the Philippines, the Thai separatists from Southern Thai. You know, it's bonkers if you don't control your borders. So that's basically, I think, the real motivation from the Trump administration. Everything else is, I would say, you know, the birthright citizenship, I would concur with Josh, it's political, right? But, you know, this whole, you've got gangs coming in, you've got terrorists coming in. I guarantee you guys, you've got terrorists coming in. I absolutely can guarantee.
Yeah, those are actually, I was told that by a county clerk, the executive director. Her husband worked in Border Patrol, and we were talking to her. This was back in the union campaign about, how the department, you know, pro-union or whatever. And she just can, you know, offhand, she's like, oh, my husband, you know, getting to know her or whatever. She's like, oh, my husband's in Border Patrol, and you wouldn't believe the stuff coming across the border. And she said basically what you said, you know. And me and my boss look at each other after the meeting, go, oh, what a right-wing loony nut. But she was the one that was talking the straight talk, you know. For YouTubers out there, I would ask you to explore, okay, the Rohingya George Soros situation, okay? And I want people to see how deceptive it is. Cousins of mine, okay, who are definitely anti-Trump, right? Even they were like, oh my God, India, the refugee crisis with the Rohingya. And I'm like, you mean the Islamists masking as refugees? Okay. And this was a rare moment where the Grand Mufti at the time of Syria came out and publicly supported the Modi government of India, saying, no, this is not a Muslim rights issue. This is a safety and security issue, that embedded in these so-called Rohingya refugees are these Islamist separatists, what have you, right? At the same time, Oscar Blue Ramirez, primary source, he went through the Darien Gap, he's on YouTube, okay, multiple times, right? Covered HIAS, Hebrew International Aid Society, coaching people. If you're a refugee, you don't need to be coached, okay? But they're coached, this is how you answer the questions, this is the boxes you check, all right? Facilitating this whole thing through. So all I would ask people, okay, really what I implore is just employ the golden rule. Get rid of the guilt, get rid of the shame, this idea that villages are burning and people are, you know, running from them. Oh, if no America, the village is burned. That's not the situation most of the time, okay? There are vast family networks all across Asia, South America. If we encourage these people to face the challenges in their society and make their countries great again, they can do it. But this, yeah, I'll call it, I don't like to say this, but the whole white liberal guilt, okay, as it's that phrase, right? White guilt or whatever, right? This is all I from people that are personally been affected by undocumented illegals, right? They still have this idea that, oh no, you know, we're shutting out the poor and oppressed out there. When you go visit these places, that's just not how it is. Shamsul, we're gonna cut the live here, so just hang out, guys, for a second, and let's play our most favorite outro clip. Here we go.
Sorry if we cut anyone off, but that's a wrap. Remember, you can catch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. It's your chance to join the conversation and have your voice heard. Just check the link in the description or visit americastalk.show. Together, through the free exchange of ideas, we can truly make America great again. Don't miss out. Tune in and be part of the dialogue.